That feels right.
Hello everyone, back out on the water again in my little yellow kayak, but this time I'm in the ocean and I'm looking around for false albacore. In case you're not familiar, false albacore are little tuna that show up in New England waters usually about mid to late August, and they stick around into October, sometimes even Halloween, before they go to parts south, Carolinas, etc. It's a little bit of a chilly start this morning, but it's going to warm up pretty fast. We're having some mild weather, and I've been waiting for a stretch of light winds, and it seems like every weekend there's a storm and some sort of system camped off the coast. So this is midweek, which helps with the boat traffic a little bit. And we've got light northwest winds to start, which is good for me because the land shelters me from the wind. But the thing about fishing in a little kayak, in the ocean especially, is when the wind changes or kicks up or the forecast isn't right, which happens a lot, you just gotta bail. You gotta head for the barn, head to the launch, and no fooling around. You gotta just bail before things get too snotty. The other thing that I do in the ocean is I wear a foam life vest. So if anything did happen and I ended up in the water, I don't have to worry about self-inflating, life jacket inflating, or one of those pull tabs breaking when you go to yank it. It's already set to do its job. I like the inflatable ones a little bit more in fresh water. They're a little bit more comfortable to wear and not as bulky. But in salt water, I'd rather not mess around. So I made my way to the outflow of a salt pond. And usually these outflows are flanked on either side by jetties. So they're pretty obvious, the major ones anyway. And they're good places to fish because the bait gets flushed out of the salt ponds and the albies are there to eat them up. I couldn't get out here a little earlier because there's a bunch of boats fishing out here. There he is. But it seems like the boats kind of cluster together. Power boats, I mean. Say there's, I don't know, 6 of them all clustered together. If 3 or 4 peel off and start headed somewhere else, the other boats tend to follow. It's kind of weird. So I just waited till they all left, and then I was able to go and fish the outflow of the jetty. This albie's taking me for a ride right here. It's actually going to take me into the rip from the outflow of the salt pond. That's alright, just gets a little bouncy. The kayak itself acts like a drag to help fight the fish. Actually, when I was getting ready in the morning, it was dark and I grabbed the wrong rod. So that is a 7-foot Penn Regiment and a 3,000 size reel. And I would rather have a 7'6" rod that was a little heavier and a 4,000 size reel. But that's what I grabbed, and so that's what I'm fishing. It ends up working out all right. The fish were very, very fussy, so I had to use a light leader. It's 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. And I can't really horse them. So I have to wait till the fish is starting to come at me, like right there, to try to gain line back on the reel. It's kind of a fine line. You want to put as much pressure on them as you can to land them as quickly as you can. But if you put too much pressure on them, they'll break that light leader. And if you don't put enough pressure on them, they'll fight themselves to death and they won't release well. So, yeah, it's a very different fight than stripers or bluefish or anything in freshwater. Because they're little mini tuna, they're super fast. They can peel off a lot of line in seconds. They're kind of addictive. Once you start catching them, you just want to go and catch more of them. Some people call it albie fever. And there's no cure for albie fever except more albies. See the waves picking up just a little bit. There's one boat that stayed behind and one kayaker that stayed behind besides me. Also helps that it's midweek. I think on a nice weekend day, which we haven't had too many of, but if one happened to be sunny and not too windy, this place would be packed with boats. But this is a Tuesday morning and it's not too busy.
There he is.
I can see a little color. I can see the silhouette of the fish in the water. And I've got my big, well, it's actually the net I use for fluke. Pretty big net, works well for albies too. You can try to tail them. Just grab the hard part behind their tail fin. He saw the net and made one last turn away, but I'll get him. Into the net he goes. The net was kind of bunched up, so I had to shuffle him down a little bit. Gonna pop that fly out of his mouth. He took a pink fly that I tied behind a spoon. You want to get him, released as soon as you can, because they will fight themselves to death if you let them, and they need water going over their gills to live, to breathe. They're not super hardy. So I'm checking my line for nicks. You can see that metal spoon, and I caught him on a pink fly. I made a video earlier about how to finish hand-tied flies with UV resin material, and that's one of the albie flies I tied up from that box. So the line was a little bit frayed, so I thought I'd better retie it. Unfortunately, soon after I retied, the wind really kicked up from the southwest, and I had to pick my way through the waves to get back to the launch point. So there was no more albie fishing for me after this. I think I took a few casts just to rest a little bit in between fighting the waves, but it was mostly just paddling back to the launch. Here's a closer look at the spoon and fly. It's a 1/2 ounce real image glow spoon with a 15-inch fluorocarbon leader of 12-pound test and a pink fly. And right after I got everything all tied up and started to think about fishing some more, the wind picked up. You can see the camera bouncing, the kayaks bouncing, and the wind was blowing light northwest, and it shifted around to heavy southwest. And I just had to bail on the fishing and just pick my way through the waves back to the launch. It's alright. It was a good plan. The forecast just didn't work out. So the next morning I headed out to a different spot. We've got greasy, calm, slick water. This is really better conditions for my little yellow kayak. I also have a saltwater boat. I just didn't think that I would need it. The forecast ended up being wrong the other day. But with conditions like this, you know, a little kayak is fine. I mean, I've been in rougher water in a lake. But these greasy, calm conditions make the fish a lot smarter. They get a good look at the bait and a good look at your lure, and they decide, well, that doesn't look anything like the bait that's around. And boy, they were really fussy on this morning. I could see a bunch of pods. I could see bait in the water. It looked like small silver sides. Saw a school of peanut bunker. But man, they were tough. Sometimes I would chase a school for a little bit, get in a few casts. I tried some topwater things. I tried the metal and fly, which is usually pretty much a sure thing when they're tough. They didn't want it. And I tried changing lures, tried speeding up my retrieve, everything I could think of, and I just wasn't having any luck. Now, the people around me weren't catching them either, so it wasn't like it was just me. But yeah, it's a balance of finding good conditions to kayak and also good conditions to catch fish, because just a little bit of a ripple and I think I would have done a whole lot better. And the day before, the little ripple turned into big waves and a lot of wind, which was no good either. So it's kind of a small window for kayak fishing in the ocean. And that makes it even more challenging, is just finding the right conditions to fish and then having that line up with, you know, everything else that's going on in your world. Family stuff, work stuff, whatever. And then being able to get a day midweek or 2 days midweek to go chase these fish. It's kind of rare. At least for me. But even if the fish aren't breaking all around and eating lures like crazy, it's really very nice out here. Just to be out and paddling around is pretty good. Beats sitting behind a desk or sitting on the couch. So I chase these fish all around. And my only real chance is coming up right here. I heard them blowing up behind me. Always seems like the fish blow up behind me. So I spun the boat around. Took a few strokes of the paddle to get out there. And now I'm trying a skipping retrieve. I wasn't always reeling so fast, but I've kind of run out of other retrieves to try. It's hard to figure them out when you're not getting a lot of feedback. And we'll take a closer look at that blow up, because this is the only blow up I had. I was skipping that, was actually an epoxy in a fly, not a metal in a fly. And the fish went after the epoxy jig and not the fly with the hook.
I was doing it.
So, yeah, that was a little disappointing. That was my one and only shot. I mean, real shot. If I had to do it all over again, I think I would have a rod rigged up with just the epoxy and try a skipping retrieve, something small in a neutral color. But yeah, that's tough. That's tough. When you fish all morning, you have one shot at the fish, one real shot, and he eats the lure without the hook. You know, maybe another fish he would have went after the fly that's trailing behind the epoxy. But I don't usually fish spoon and fly with a real fast retrieve like that. And I think I'm probably better off in the future throwing a single epoxy without the fly and skipping it across the surface on these greasy, calm days. Because that fish did eat the lure, and I think if I had a hook on the back of it, I would have got him. So now I'm just thinking about what just happened and looking around for more fish, but that was pretty much the end of it. So thanks everyone for watching. I'll list all the gear in the video description. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!